Morning, it's Mary Brooks. How are you? Whole video for you and the audio was terrible. I'm going to pull this a little closer. I have to record it twice or 3 times. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about the adrenals. I appreciate all the things that you asked me to talk about in the forum, and I'm going to try to talk about all of them. The kind of the cornerstone of who I am, what my business is all about, is education and information. I kind of had that whole idea about, give a man a fish or teach a man to fish. And so, my whole model is not to create dependency on me, but to, help dig down into fix them. That doesn't mean that somebody isn't going to come, things change, but that's really my goal. And so there's a lot of teaching opportunity in this whole process. Adrenals are something that we could do a whole nother, like I've taught group workshops on that, and it's not something you can fix overnight, but I want about it. And I'm going to tell you, a little bit about my own story. You guys know me pretty well, but some of you don't. And so I've had my go-arounds with adrenal fatigue, and I didn't know what it was. And, I can tell you that at the height of all of my health issues, and I'm pretty lucky given what I've had to feel as good as I do. But what I know is that, I spent literally thousands of dollars care system, and the amount of real support that I got was so minimal, and how low I really was, not just because of the time and the emotional energy and trying to figure out like what was. And it really wasn't until, my own education and then, the research that I started to do, that I understood how all these things came together. And because I thought, well, you could fix one thing, but until you fix several, you didn't get the satisfaction and the results. And I mean, I can tell you right now, I feel the best that I have had been in a long time, and I've been through a lot, but it's just because of applying these practices. So I will tell you, I think my first experience with, where my health might have suffered happened to me. So I have 3 children. My oldest is now 22. Sorry, I keep making her older. And my youngest 2, I have twins. So when Emily was just like over 2.5, I had infant twins. And, I was so lucky. They never spent an extra day in the hospital, but I came home with 2 little infants and a 2.5-year-old. Anybody in town, I had no family. And just the experience of, waking up in the night and not knowing if those 2 would ever go back to sleep was, that was just, I remember like my heart racing at night because I just didn't know what was going to happen next. And I felt like I always had to be one step ahead and roll with it. I always had to know I had to have their food ready, or, whatever. I had that all the time. So I think that really had a on my health. And then periods of times in my life, like I know that I have this high productivity approach to life. And whenever I was on something, I would get sort of like hyper focused, and I was, signs and symptoms from my body, I would just work through them. So I think that to adrenal fatigue. And last year, I know that I had some of it. And if you don't know my story, in Knoxville, Tennessee for 20 years, 15 years, sold my house, moved to a new town, all of that. My husband started a new job. We were, apart for 4 months, and then we were living in an apartment for 4 months and building a house and touching every single stupid piece of everything that we ever had. It was just a lot to take on. And the interesting thing is that was a happy stress. So it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It can also, enjoyable, but it just pushes your body. So my story about adrenal fatigue, I've had some of it from time to time, and it feels pretty awful. The signs of adrenal fatigue. Number one can just be chronic exhaustion. You wake up and sleep and you're still tired. That's pretty classic. And in the middle is a sign, or salt, sugar, fat, energy crashes, brain fog, mood swings. And kind of a classic one can be what I call tired but wired. You have been exhausted all day and you can't sleep. So the reason this matters, if you have that and you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to change your health, until you address that. So it's really important to address it. So a little bit of an overview of the adrenals. So the adrenals are a gland that sits on top of your kidneys. The link between your adrenals starts with the hypothalamus, communicates with the pituitary, communicates with that adrenal gland. And the adrenal on top of the kidneys, that's one reason why we support all this to function right. We want our kidneys to be, we don't want them under too much stress. So what happens is when you needs energy, or when you are under stress, you produce more of that hormone. But if you're high, it does things to sort of protect. Now, one thing that it does is it communicates with your thyroid. So if your body is telling you, like, I'm under all this stress, when your thyroid is telling you, that's your metabolism, it will actually throttle you back intentionally because of you. The other thing that it does is it kind of slows down what it considers like less critical things like digestion. And so, if your body was like, under duress, it would say, well, I have to do these things and I don't need to do those things as much. To us is we are chronically stressed, like constant, low level, never ending stress, which is really cut out for that. It really wasn't intended. So that's what's going on. Extreme adrenal fatigue, you may be so exhausted, and it really can mental health, like what you feel like is can also feel mental, and they go hand in hand. So I know I had that, just my perception of things was worse. So the more I worked on that, the better I feel. And the better I feel when I'm dealing with something that's stressful, I don't feel like caught up in it, if that makes sense. So those are like physiology. There's not a lot that we got into, but we could do that more if you guys maybe wanted to do another whole intensive on that. And I've done that for other groups. So let me talk about how to fix that. So number one is you got to fix a leaky gut. You're going to have two things going on. You're going to have inflammation in the body, and your immunity is going to be, that is just going to cause havoc. So the more your gut is functioning, the better. And there's a really interesting thing that's happening too. When the gut is impaired, that is the majority of your serotonin is, which is kind of your. So having a strong gut and a strong microbiome is really. There's a study I just read that autism actually have more of the bad bacteria. They're excreting more of that. So yeah, of how critical gut function is for emotional and mental well-being. So regimen that we're going through and your understanding it's just really, really helpful. Okay, so then the next part is you got to regulate your blood. So what most people do is, or a lot of people do is they eat either a skimpy breakfast or a high carbohydrate breakfast, or they drink coffee on an empty stomach, where they don't eat. What happens is your cortisol goes up. And the best thing to do is to modulate your blood sugar and eat high protein breakfast. The other thing that's really, cortisol in the battle for your hormones always wins. So there's a adrenal, and that is form. Well, if you're demanding more cortisol, your body will always form the cortisol over your. So that's like the number one thing that you can do to balance your hormones is, balance out the cortisol sugar level. The next thing is the right kind of exercise. Exercise can be great and it can really lower your stress, but if you're excessively, it can throttle you back. And if you are doing your exercise and you can't, then you need to slow down and you need to throttle back. People who are exercising and just really enjoying it, it's something restorative. You got to listen to all that business of like pushing through, which you got to do that. When you exercise, it can't be like you're at a cocktail party. But I would advocate for short exercise as opposed to like hours and hours. And if you hours, you got to, do stuff to balance that out. Then the next one is sleep, because sleep is really important to getting your cortisol and your adrenal control. So night owls, not good for you. You really need to go to bed at a decent hour. I think I'll do just a whole session on sleep, because that's a drug to a lot of this disrepair thing in the night. So you need your rest. And then is mindset. And you told me a few years ago that was based on my thinking, I probably would roll my eyes, but it is. It's a matter of modulating. And here's the deal. Like, I know that a lot of us are stressed and we didn't ask for that. But a couple things. You are doing something and you are not meeting any of your creative needs, whether they're hobbies or your pursuits, you're going to, because you're just not limit with what you want. And that doesn't abandon your family, but you have to find outlet. I mean, the statistics on how burnt out we are as a society are really pretty staggering. So finding something that your joy or your passion and doing a little bit of it every day is really important. And then, just working on, I think for a lot of us, if we really looked at it can be pretty brutal. And, your mind listens to that. So my whole life has changed a lot from shifting, you should do more, or you're not good enough, or, productivity is the, mark of how well you're doing. Rest, and rest does not mean, and it did for me. I was like, oh, every day I call myself like the gold, like I want a gold star for like everything that I do. I want to know that I did something good, but that can be a real strategy for disaster. So I really just, those are the, those got balancing your blood sugar, appropriate exercise, getting good sleep, mindset, and thinking. And we'll chat soon, guys. Thanks. Bye.